Sound and music are the final assets we need before we begin our prototype. This will be a simple conversion exercise using both DOSBox and Audacity export features to keep the process quick. During processing, I'll discuss how this task could be complicated if we went down the road of building a sound synthesizer on our own. I'll make a workspace, but I'm only going to copy one of the VOC files that we're interested in and one of the CMF files. We'll briefly look at both in the hex editor. But before we go any further, I want to launch the game and start recording inside DOSBox. A big part of this video is having DOSBox save the music stream for us in the background, so I'll get that started now while I explain what we're doing. Alright, let's open the CMF file, which contains the main menu music that we'll be recording in a moment inside DOSBox. We finally see a file with a header telling us that this is a Creative Technologies music file, version 1.1. Our first well-known file type. Now the most important point I want to make here is that this file is very small, around 7 kilobytes, and fits on a single screen here in the hex editor. But when we play this sound clip, the music lasts at least 30 seconds in game, probably even a minute. Now these days, a minute worth of raw music is worth at least a megabyte of data, and probably more than 10 megabytes. That's because raw sound data tells the sound hardware what sounds to produce for literally every microsecond of time. This CMF file doesn't do that. It doesn't contain any music data at all. Instead, it contains instruction data similar to the MIDI standard, which tells the sound hardware how to simulate or synthesize the sounds. There's 3 sections to the file: the header, the instrument block, and the song data. Now if we think about this as a simulation, the header prepares the environment, the instrument block defines what actions can be taken, and the data section says which order to perform the actions. Now in synthesizer terms, the header sets the tempo by relating the song beats to real time. The instrument section defines the sonic properties of each musical instrument used in the song. These bytes set the ADSR characteristics, that is attack, decay, sustain, and release times that model the sound envelope. The data section is the sheet music telling the hardware controller which notes the instrument should play and for how long. The hardware generates these waveforms based on these timings and mixes them, maybe through some flavor of Fourier series or any other rules that the manufacturer decides. So if we wanted to extract the music ourselves, we would have to build a program that emulates the hardware to execute the instructions. It's not a simple task, especially since the output quality is subjective. Now for every sound card out there, you get a different interpretation of the instructions. Now fortunately, we have a built-in simulator in DOSBox, which is why we're using it right now. We're converting the sound instructions to raw sound data in real time. Let's look at the VOC file. Again, we have a header that tells that this is a well-known file format. Now these data are dense, and this is because this is raw sound data, and it may be compressed as well. And to get the sound files, we're just going to follow the same procedure in DOSBox, except I'll restart and turn off the music to make sure that we're only getting sound effects. I want to go to the map screen right away so I don't get blaster fire sound effects mixed in with the music. Alright, music recording's done. Let's restart DOSBox. I'll delete the config so we can force the sound off. Now let's get to the gameplay. I'm only trying to get the sound of blaster fire and missile fire without any mixing or overlapping. Okay, I think I have the sounds. Let's copy the 2 WAV files DOSBox gave us into the working directory. Now we'll open Audacity and deal with the sound file first. Let's isolate the two different sounds on separate tracks, and we'll do a multiple export as an MP3 with a constant bitrate of 96K. Now, I don't think Audacity supports MP3 by default, so you might have to download a DLL file to get the compatibility. I believe it's provided by the Lame project. Now we'll move on to the music file. We have 5 separate tracks that we want to separate. Now let's export these again as 96K MP3s. Give them better names. And that's it. We now have all the assets we need to build our functioning prototype of Traffic Department. In the next video, we'll go over some preliminary information about game engines and the role of a commercial game engine for our work.